As far as small SUVs go, the Mercedes-Benz GLA has been at the forefront of the premium segment since the release of its second generation model in August 2020. Fast forward to now, almost a year later, and an all-electric version of the GLA, the EQA, has become available. But given the EQA is Mercedes' most affordable zero-emissions model yet, does its entry-level variant, the EQA 250, offer buyers enough value? Let's find out. But before we do, I'm going to split this video into chapters with their time codes right over here, so feel free to skip ahead to anything you're particularly interested in. And if you're watching on YouTube, there are markers in the timeline below to make scrubbing ahead even easier, but be sure to give this video a like before you do. And as always, if you want to know more, you can read my detailed written review over at the CarsGuide website, so click on the link in the description below. And if you want to stay on top of any of our new videos, be sure to subscribe to the CarsGuide YouTube channel and then tap that bell icon to get notified as soon as they're uploaded. Now let's take a look at what you get for your money. While the EQA is launching with a single variant, the front-wheel drive EQA 250, it will be joined by an all-wheel drive and yet to be priced EQA 350 by the end of 2021. We'll go through all the differences between the two in later chapters, but for now, let's see how the EQA 250 stacks up. Priced from about $77,000 before on roads, the EQA 250 costs almost the same as its main rival, the all-wheel drive Volvo XC40 Recharge Pure Electric, although that model has higher outputs, much like the EQA 350 will. Of course, you can read all about the XC40 Recharge Pure Electric in our price and features story on the CarsGuide website. If you're watching on YouTube, click on the pop-out link in the top right-hand corner to have a read. And when it comes to the EQA 250, it's also priced about $7,000 higher than the equivalent GLA 250, with its standard equipment including dust-sensing LED lights, 19-inch alloy wheels, aluminium roof rails, keyless entry, and a hands-free power-operated tailgate. Inside, the central touchscreen and digital instrument cluster both measure 10.25 inches in diameter, with the MBUX multimedia system offering satellite navigation, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support, and digital radio. Then there's a 10-speaker sound system, wireless smartphone charger, power-adjustable front seats with heating, dual-zone climate control, Artico artificial leather upholstery, and ambient lighting. Of course, there's also a full suite of advanced driver assist systems, but we'll go through all of that in the safety chapter. Notable options include a panoramic sunroof and the MBUX Innovations package, which includes a head-up display, so the EQA 250's value is questionable in more ways than one. An AMG line package can also be had, with it bundling in a body kit, 20-inch alloy wheels, a flat-bottom steering wheel and front sport seats. Next, we'll check out the design. Externally, it's pretty easy to pick the EQA out of the GLA and wider small SUV crowd thanks to its unique front and rear fascias. Up front, the EQA's LED headlights are linked by a more expansive, albeit closed grille, as well as an LED light bar to give off that seriously futuristic look. But around the side, the EQA could be mistaken for another GLA variant, with only its unique alloy wheels, EQA badge and some chrome trim helping to separate it from the pack. That said, at the rear there's no confusing the EQA for anything else, as its bespoke LED taillights stretch from side to side to cut quite the striking impression, while the Mercedes-Benz badge and number plate are repositioned. Inside, there's very little to differentiate the EQA from the GLA. You do have Artico artificial leather upholstery about the place to push that sustainability story. That said, you still get Nappa leather upholstery on the steering wheel, so go figure, that's real cow. But yeah, otherwise it pretty much is a GLA inside. That's no bad thing though. You've got a couple of 10.25-inch displays, one being the digital instrument cluster and the other the central touchscreen. They're both powered by Mercedes' MBUX multimedia system, which is without a doubt one of the best in class. Other than that, you've got plenty of premium materials about the place and a couple of interesting things like these turbine style air vents, which look pretty cool. But let us know what you think of the design in the comments below. Next, we'll check out practicality. Practicality-wise, the EQA 250 does make some compromises over the GLA. For example, its boot's cargo capacity is 340 litres, which is 105 litres less than what you get with the GLA. That said, if you do fold down this split fold second row, you get 1,320 litres of cargo capacity, which isn't too bad. Either way, the boot floor is flat, which makes loading bulkier items that little bit easier. And amenities-wise, you've got 4 tie-down points for securing loose items, plus a couple of bag hooks and a couple of side storage nets. You'll also notice that charging cables for this particular vehicle are in the boot, and there's a good reason for that. To work out what that reason is, we need to go and check out the front. That's right, under the bonnet there is no additional storage space, so you can hardly call it a fruit or a frunk. Instead, the electric motor and all the other gubbins that powers the EQA 250 can be found here, so it's not particularly helpful when it comes to practicality. Next, we'll check out the second row. Here in the second row, this is where things get interesting with the EQA. Compared to the GLA, you've obviously got batteries under the floor, and that affects the seating position of those in the second row. So you may notice right now I'm kind of squatting a little bit. You're not necessarily getting that under thigh support that you might get in other cars. And again, that's to do with the high positioning of the floor. But at the same time, you still do get about an inch of headroom, even with the optional panoramic sunroof. And legroom's pretty decent as well. I've got a few inches behind my 184 centimeter driving position, so that's not too bad. In terms of amenities in the second row, there is a fold down armrest with pop-out cup holders, which work pretty well. And they're always good to see rather than having the cup holders just here where your elbow would be using the armrest. So don't mind those. The door bins can take a regular bottle though, which isn't too bad. And in terms of other things in the second row, you've got a couple of air vents and a single USB-C port to share between passengers, and there are storage nets on the back of the seats as well. Next, we'll check out the first row. Here in the first row, the EQA is surprisingly practical. You've got a couple of cup holders here at the front of the center console, and ahead of that is a USB-C port, a 12-volt power outlet, and a wireless smartphone charger. Further back, the central bin is nice and large, and there's a couple of USB-C ports in there, which is pretty cool. And even the glove box is on the larger size, so you can fit more than just the owner's manual on there, which is always a good thing. But the door bins, they take 3 regular bottles each, which is pretty crazy. You're never going to go thirsty in the EQA. Next, we'll check out the drivetrain. The EQA 250 is powered by a front-mounted electric motor, which produces 140 kilowatts of power and 375 newton meters of torque. With a curb weight of 2,040 kilos to deal with, it sprints from a standstill to 100 kilometers an hour in a respectable 8.9 seconds. But if you're after higher performance, the EQA 350 will add a rear-mounted electric motor for combined outputs of 215 kilowatts and 520 newton meters. It will be able to shift its 2,105 kilogram frame to triple digits in a hot hatch like 6 seconds flat. Now we'll take a look at the energy consumption. The EQA 250 is fitted with a 66.5 kilowatt hour battery, which delivers a respectable 426 kilometers of WLTP certified range. Its energy consumption is 17.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. On the other hand, the EQA 350 will last 6 kilometers longer in between charges, while requiring 0.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers less juice along the way. In my real-world testing with the EQA 250, I averaged 19.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers over 176 kilometers of driving, which primarily took place on country roads, although time was spent in the urban jungle. As such, I would have been able to get 336 kilometers of range out of a single charge, which is a solid return for a city-focused vehicle. And keep in mind, you'd be able to get an even better result without my heavy right foot. When it does come to charging though, there's no difference between the EQA 250 and EQA 350, with their shared battery able to increase its capacity from 10 to 80% in a commendable half an hour when using a 100 kilowatt DC fast charger with a CCS port. Alternatively, the onboard 11 kilowatt AC charger with a Type 2 port will do the job in 4.1 hours, which means charging at home or the office will be a breeze no matter the time of day. Conveniently, the EQA comes with a 3-year subscription to ChargeFox's public EV charging network, which is the largest in Australia. Next, we'll check out safety. Neither ANCAP nor its European counterpart Euro NCAP has given the EQA, let alone the related GLA, a safety rating yet, so it's yet to have its crash performance independently assessed. That said, advanced driver assist systems in the EQA 250 extend to autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane keep and steering assist, adaptive cruise control, and speed sign recognition. Then there's high beam assist, active blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, park assist, a reversing camera, front and rear parking sensors, safe exit assist, and tyre pressure monitoring. While that list is pretty impressive, it's worth noting surround view cameras form part of the optional vision package. Other standard safety equipment includes 7 airbags, 3 top tether and 2 ISOFIX child seat anchorage points, anti-skid brakes, and the usual electronic traction and stability control systems. Now we'll take a look at ownership. As with all Mercedes-Benz models, the EQA 250 comes with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty and 5 years of roadside assistance, which currently sets the standard for the premium segment. That said, the battery is covered by a separate 8-year 160,000 kilometre warranty for that extra peace of mind. Better yet, the EQA 250 service intervals are relatively long, at every year or 25,000 kilometres, whichever comes first. A 5-year 125,000 kilometre cap price servicing plan is available, costing $2,200 in total, or an average of $440 per visit, which is fairly reasonable all things considered. Next, we'll check out how it drives. Behind the wheel of the EQA 250, the first thing you obviously notice is the electric motor. It's nice and silent first and foremost, but when you put your foot down, you get that instantaneous response thanks to that torque that's available instantly, that 375 Newton meters. The 140 kilowatts of power obviously is nothing to be sneezed at either, but this is definitely the type of car where you're going to be quite quick off the line. So in the city environment where most owners will be driving an EQA 250, you're going to find the performance to be quite sprightly. Out on a country road though, it can feel a little bit slower in comparison to other cars. And again, we're not talking about a hot hatch or anything like that. But if you do want extra performance, the EQA 350 is coming soon, and that will definitely be a lot sprightlier on a straight line. Now obviously part of the electric car experience in the EQA 250 is the regenerative braking, and thankfully for the most part it's a pretty good experience here. Mercedes has given buyers the opportunity to choose whatever mode they like. Now there's a few to get through. So the first one is D, which is kind of the automatic mode that it goes into. For most drivers it's going to feel quite natural. You take your foot off the brake and there's a little bit of motor braking, so the same way you would in a petrol or diesel car. But if you want the real electric car experience, you'll probably find yourself playing with D- or D-, which is my personal favorite. And that one allows you to have aggressive regenerative braking. Essentially, you can do one pedal driving. As soon as you take your foot off the pedal, the car slows down significantly. You can actually get it to a crawl, not a complete stop disappointingly, so it's not true one pedal driving, but it is pretty close. Now, of course, when you do have to use the brakes, the actual friction brakes, most electric cars have an issue in terms of going from regenerative braking to the friction brakes, and the EQA 250 is sadly no different. It can be quite jerky when you come onto the pedal, and that can be a little unsettling, but again, it's one of those things where if you actually own the car day to day, you'll probably fine-tune your driving skills around that and get used to it essentially. So in the end, probably not so bad. Now in terms of grip, when you do put your foot down, the EQA 250 can struggle a little bit. Again, it is front-wheel drive, so off the line, if you do stick the boot in, you do find that you can lose a little bit of traction, or when you're cornering hard as well with the power on, it can struggle a little bit. Again, the EQA 350 being all-wheel drive is unlikely to suffer from that type of issue, so again, if that's the type of thing you're after, you might want to wait for that one. When it comes to handling in general though, the EQA 350 is pretty good. Again, it's a small SUV, so there is some body roll to contend with, but the battery positioning nice and low on the floor means the center of gravity is nice and low, so it's actually not too bad. What you do feel though is the weight of the car. Again, this is over 2 tons we're dealing with here, so that does kind of fight against you as you go through the corners, and if you are really pushing it, the EQA 250 is prone to understeer, but that's something you're just going to have to learn to manage. But when it comes to steering, the EQA 250 is actually quite sporty. It's nice and direct, surprisingly so, and in the default comfort mode, the steering's nice and light, so it's actually quite easy to move about. Of course, there is a sport mode as well if you want a little bit extra heft, but I personally would prefer the comfort mode for day-to-day driving. I think it does most things pretty well. When it comes to ride comfort, the EQA 250 is pretty good, but it does depend on what wheel size you go for. The AMG line package, which is fitted to this car, comes with 20-inch alloy wheels, and they do pick up road imperfections that little bit more. Again, it's not bone jarring or anything like that, but we are talking about a stiffly sprung car because of the weight it has to deal with. So again, it's something you will notice, but by no means a deal breaker. And of course, there are adaptive dampers on hand, so in the standard comfort mode, they do a very nice job. Of course, you can put them into the sport mode, which amplifies the feedback that little bit more and obviously improves handling somewhat, but again, we probably wouldn't really bother. Now, of course, being an electric car, one key consideration is the noise levels. There's no engine whirring away, creating noise, so you really do start to notice the things that are happening around you. In this car, wind noise is definitely a factor, as is tire noise and just general road noise. So they are things that you're going to take a lot more notice of. That said, if you've got the sound system going, be it a radio station or what have you, you are going to be able to drown out a lot of those noises and probably not really even hear them. But either way, the sound deadening could be that little bit better. The EQA is clearly a big step forward for Mercedes-Benz and the premium segment in general, with the EQA 250 offering compelling real-world range in an attractive package, although it is relatively expensive. And for those buyers that like a little extra oomph, it will be worth waiting for the EQA 350, which will offer much more sprightly straight-line performance. Either way, the EQA should be taken seriously. And don't forget, there's even more detail in my written review, including a breakdown of the overall score over at the CarsGuide website.